I'm the grandson of Maurice Thorez, who was the General Secretary of the Communist Party in France for a long time. We have only one planet where to live on, and definitely we should share it properly and share all its riches together.
If there are no radical changes within the core of the European Union, the system itself around Europe won't change.
To create links, new links for new generations that will definitely support and help us getting to a good and strong friendship again.
Zvezda Holding presents Dynamic Spectrum Talks now.
Hello, dear friends. This is the Dynamic Spectrum Talks podcast, a place where we meet with interesting people from all over the world with the obvious aim to erase artificially created dividing lines between peoples and nations. We are here to build bridges and to unite people all around the world, to talk about public diplomacy and to find common ground between us. And today, I'm very glad to welcome in our studio a very interesting guest from France, a film producer in the past and also former head of the Information and Communication Office of the European Union Mission to Moscow, grandson of the famous French politician Maurice Thorez, Matthieu Thorez. Matthieu, hello, bonjour.
Bonjour.
Comment ça va?
I'm very fine, thank you. Thank you for welcoming me warmly in your studio.
Yeah, we're very glad to see you in person, to talk with you, not via call like a lot of communication these days are taking place. So it's good. It's good to have a personal, I will say, informal communication. Matthieu, you have been working in Commonwealth of Independent States area, region, or former Soviet Union for quite a long time. About 30 years. And many years you also spent in Russia. The obvious question I need to ask you, and I'm going to start our talk today, how Russia or the Soviet Union or Commonwealth of Independent States appeared in your life? Why Russia?
It's a long story. First of all, as you said, I'm the grandson of Maurice Thorez, who was the General Secretary of the Communist Party in France for a long time. So obviously he happened to behave into Russia a lot of time during his life. And following that point, it happens to be that my father, Paul Thorez, was born in Russia during the Second World War. And he always loved Russia very much. And the first thing he did when I was able to travel myself with himself is to bring me to Russia, Soviet Soyuz at the time, and USSR. So it happens to be that I have a lot of souvenirs of my presence into Russia, from Videnja Exposition Park, Park Ismailovo, where I used to do ski with my father during winter. Then life happened to bring myself into Russia during the 90s. So happened to be that I was cinema producer in France at that time, and at the beginning of the 90s, it became very fashionable to come and make films in Russia. And I was mainly producing at that time documentary film or advertising films. For the European and French market, as well as for the Russian market. We had sometimes some contract to be delivered for big companies willing to get into the Russian market at that time. And I was working with several of the most important advertising companies in the world. So I had a lot of nice time and enjoyed very much myself coming into Russia and other countries from the CIS, as Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan.
So it was in the 90s?
It was in the 90s, yes.
And how in your life appeared European European mission to Moscow? This is something that looks a little bit from the different world. I mean, filmmaking process and diplomatic mission. We understand that there are a lot of different, I would say, positions within this mission, but still, it's another world.
Yes, but it happened to be that during the early 90s, I met my wife, who is actually Russian, and it happens to be the most the most beautiful person I met in my life. Of course, you can imagine. And at that time, I was looking after the possibility to stay into Russia for a while, and I've been proposed as I was developing and working into the advertising sphere. I've been proposed to come and work here, first of all, for a French advertising company having a representation in Moscow, where I developed good connection with local actors in the sphere. And happened to be that after a certain period of time, the delegation of the European Union in Russia was looking for a representative to communicate and inform the Russian as well as the European nations and people about the work provided by the European Union to Russia and the project that were at that time developed together.
Okay, and what kind of those projects?
It was a very different kind of a project, as well as into the educational world, as well as into the industrial world, as well as in the production world. We were having projects into the development of the wood production, the material production, any kind of industry, and a lot of projects were located around the educational sphere, as I told you, purely educational projects that were very satisfying and that needed some advertising.
So, and for how many years you occupied the post in the mission?
I occupied this post for almost 3 years.
Okay, and then you decided to.
Then it was agreed that it would be a mission for a certain period of time. And then I decided to go further into my PR experience. And I've been invited at that time to work for banks, which is not the same sphere at all. But I developed a good level of understanding of the banking system. And I've been invited to work for a famous bank into Switzerland.
Okay, let's go back a little bit to the history and talk about your grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
So the famous leader of the Communist Party in France, a prominent politician. What does it mean for you to, first of all, bear his name, and how do you see his legacy, and what perspectives for socialist or communist ideas exist in France or do not exist?
As you can imagine, first of all, I'm very proud of wearing his name. I want to remember everybody that he's the great person, not I. I'm only his grandson. And I'm trying to follow his marks as much as I can. He was the general secretary of the Communist Party in France from the 30s until his death in 1964. I believe it was a totally different world at that time. Communication were not the same. The level of living of the people were not the same. His ideas were great. He was definitely a person willing to defend the poorest and to develop a social life acceptable for anybody on earth. It was living for peace, as well as my grandmother, well-known communist as well, Jeannette Vermersch. They fought all their life for the peace between people. And regarding that point, I think we should follow them on their marks, and a lot of to learn from their positions at that time, because it was not an easy world at that time too.
It's absolutely clear And still, how do you think, is there any, let's say, potential chance for such activities as your grandfather did in the past in modern France, or there is no space for left movement?
I think
Proper left, because a lot of people consider themselves as leftists, but they are not left originally. They are neoliberals, I would say, but not true left politicians.
Mostly left and parties are neoliberals, far away from being communist.
That's what I mean.
I think every political idea has its time. Not saying that the communist idea is finished, but saying that it's not the idea to be developed today. I mean, we should be inspired about communism, of course, because we all we have only one planet we have to live on, and definitely we should share it properly and share all its riches together, and not having only a part of the world being rich and the other part of the world being poor, especially the rich exploiting the poor. So regarding that point, communism, yes, still alive into our life, and I guess it's forever.
You see, the global inequality is on the rise everywhere around the planet, and the United Nations, World Bank, and other institutions release every year new reports about this inequality. It means that from certain perspective, the proper left ideas, the communist ideas, should be very popular today. But at the other hand, we see that people are mostly focused on a liberal agenda, or preferring to vote, for example, for Le Pen in France, or for Alternative for Germany in Germany. But we see zero or almost zero proper left parties. Why it's happening? How do you see it?
I think it's because the communism idea at that time and how it wants to develop itself today is too much mandatory. I mean, it has to be understood that everybody has the right to be free of his idea and its own destiny. And that's where it becomes difficult to unify people, because of course everybody wants to have a better life, and nobody wants to be obliged to live a certain way for a better life that is promised. So when we'll be able to having people living a better life all together, that might be a real communist world, but for the time being, it's not happening.
You think that the time hasn't come yet?
I think the time hasn't come yet, yes.
So the previous, I don't want to call it experiments, but I would say first tries with the communist idea, it was an early start.
It was an early start. After happened imperialism, then globalism, and now we are going to get into the public democracy.
Okay. It's clear. But let's also touch the ground of current political landscape and situation in France, because it's quite interesting, especially if we're talking about legacy of your grandfather. I think in his times, it wasn't possible, the situation currently taking place in France. What I mean? In early October, French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu resigned and set several anti-records of current Fifth French Republic. It took him almost a month, to be precise 26 days, to form his cabinet of ministers. And overall, he had been in office just for 27 days. So less than a month. And according to the newspapers such as Figaro, many ministers didn't even manage to unpack their stuff and personal effects at the new cabinets in their rooms. So it means that there is some sort of crisis in France, because Lecornu once again took the office of prime minister, but seems that the problem hasn't been solved yet, and there is a I would say not quite a drastic situation in the political environment in France, because there is no strong coalition, there is no strong government. Something is happening.
Yes, something is happening. Is that France is meeting huge political crisis, mainly due to the fact that it's into a serious economical crisis too. Meaning that for the time being, no one of our political representatives can manage to formulate a budget for the country. Everybody has their own positions, and it's difficult to find a coalitions, which is actually not a French word at all. During the last elections for the National Assembly, it happens to be that we have been going through the same history as usual for the past 30 years, that we have what is called a Republican front to go against what is called neo-fascist, represented by Marine Le Pen, which, to my point of view, is not a neo-fascist at all, but represents 35% of the population, and all the other party are not agreeing that she can have that much person. So we are happening to have a coalition between right hand and left hand of the French Assembly to fight against Rassemblement National of Marine Le Pen. It happens that because of that situation, the assembly is not correctly representing the population, and no objective resolution can be found.
Okay. So it means that this is a long-lasting problem.
Yes.
Let's call it like this.
Yes.
But sooner or later, there must be place for certain changes. Otherwise, the system will not remain. Do you expect that these changes will take place in any time soon? I mean, in the nearby future, or it will take decades?
I'm not looking after it to happen in the very near future, but it should definitely happen within the next 10 years, which is to at the level of development of political issues in the country is quite fast. But before the end of the mandate of the actual president, I don't think we'll have any very much solutions. I think we're going to have some dissolutions of the National Assembly even very soon, and that will go on for the next 18 months. When we'll have a real presidential election in 27, I very much hope that everybody would be able to express themselves, and that there will be no big coalition against any party, which be left or right, and that everybody could have their own representative and to build a national assembly that could work correctly.
Let's hope for that. There is a statement, or maybe even a profound realization, a meaning in Europe and probably in Russia as well, from a certain perspective, that in order to see the real radical changes within the management system of European Union, there should be a critical number of internal demand coming from ordinary people, maybe small parties, etc. For example, we know that there is a Hungary in the European Union led by Prime Minister Viktor Orban. The country itself and the government of Viktor Orban, in many aspects, have own things to promote and own interests to defend. So they are not all the time going in the line of Brussels politics. But the voice of Hungary is not enough to make difference. So in order to make difference, there should be changes all around the European Union, especially in the major countries like France, Germany, probably Italy. I mean, if there are no radical changes within the core of the European Union, the system itself around Europe won't change. Do you agree with this statement and this realization, or you have your own comments on that?
I totally agree with your statement, and we can see, and it's happening now, that Brussels is trying to quiet down exactly what you are saying about, which is the fact that more and more people in Europe are not satisfied with the establishment of the European Union today, and Brussels is trying to fight against it. We can see that in France. We can see that in Germany with the AfD being a meeting problem as well. We have been able to see that in Romania, where the elections were cancelled. We can see that more and more people in Europe want to have their own sovereignty, that they agree to be part of an union, but that the country should be sovereignty first. It works in Italy today. We see that Meloni is agreed by its population that she's working on the right direction, and she's fighting against the European Union, and I guess that more and more political representatives from several countries in Europe are going to go that way, and that at the end we'll be able to live together, but in our own countries.
Let's hope for that, because from our perspective and my perspective as well, talking about Russian society, it's looks like a little bit unfair when there is one emission center of politics, Brussels, and the voices of people within the European Union are not properly heard. It means that the government, the management system in Brussels, it doesn't reflect the needs and most interests of the societies living under them, you see. So it means that if the country will regain their sovereignty somehow, despite for example, continuing to cooperate in economic sphere within one European family, it will bring a real difference in political landscape and in relations with other countries, including Russia. You know what? Let's get back to the French-Russian relations. Historically, there were a lot of interest from Russian society towards France and French culture. You know that 250 years ago, the noble society of Russian Empire, they spoke French language. They used to read French books. They were very curious about French philosophers and thinkers. Our Empress Catherine II, she was in direct contact via post with Voltaire. So our ties were very deep and tight. After Napoleonic Wars, there was some decline, but still, even in Soviet times, like 40 years ago, our cultural communication and interest in our cultures, from Russian side to French and French to Russian, were on a high level. Now we see the opposite story when cancel culture initiatives took place in the West and France as well. How do you think? Is it possible to override these current difficulties and to restore previous levels, high levels of our cooperation and communications? We usually enjoy it for centuries.
I definitely believe it will happen. I definitely believe it has to be the trust, the truth. I definitely believe that there are passionate relationship between France and Russia. People from my country as well as people from your country, Russia, definitely believe in their friendship. They are mutually interested by their own culture. French are always have been interested by the Russian culture. It always has been first touristical destination for the French as a dream from their youngness, as well it is for the Russian to go to France. We are very much interested by the Russian literature, the Russian music, the Russian theater, even sometimes not that much, not enough, I would say, but Russian films, as it happens here that the Russian people are very much interested into our French culture, of course, as you said. It's very amazing to see that in Russia, young people have already been reading Victor Hugo or Alexandre Dumas, and everybody knows about French literature, maybe more than the French themselves. So I'm not wondering about the today's situation, which is a political crisis. I mainly believe into the people reactions, and I can assure you that the French people have nothing personally against any Russian personality.
Well, I also believe, and I do think that sooner or later, all current difficulties will be left behind, and you know what? Russia cannot escape and get rid of the Western Europe, and the Western Europe cannot run away from Russia because we share the same continent. It means that in any case, we need to communicate. In any case, we need to talk, and we need to reach agreements because we share the same land. And honestly saying, our roots, common roots, are much deeper than many believe. Yes, of course, because I'm poor in French language, and for me it's easier to communicate with you using English language, keeping in mind that for both of us it's not native language. But beside languages, there is something bigger that unites our people since early Middle Ages. Let me also remind our audience that the daughter of Grand Duke or Grand Chief of Rus in the Middle Ages, Yaroslav the Wise, his daughter Anna, she got married to a French king, Henri, or Henry in English, and after his death, it was the 12th century, she became a queen of France. For example, I mean, our ties between countries, bilateral ties, are about like 1,000 years or so. It means that there is something bigger and deeper between our people and our civilization, and this is this part of common roots. First of all, from my perspective, we need to rediscover once again and to preserve it. If you agree with me, I hope you will also express yourself and some ideas on what I have said just now. And maybe could you highlight, because you spent a lot of years in Russia, something common you can now observe between our people, Russian and French people? What common do we have?
Well, what common?
Common ground. What common ground? What unites us? Yeah.
I guess our culture are, in a way, very similar. Both our people, actually, they love the same thing. They love literature, whether French or Russian. They love very nice movies. They love to listen to music.
Theater.
They love theater, and it happens to be that we have both of our country have the best and biggest musicians on earth, the biggest author, either literature or theater. That's already a common point, and we should, for the future, we should remember that, not being conservative, but we should have all our young generation more and more studying both sides of this cultural aspect from both sides of our different countries, and having the European and especially French young people learning more about Russia through its cultural aspects, and having the Russian, which is happening today, because it's something I can see in Russia, all the young people are very much interested still in the French and European culture. We should be able to create links, new links for new generations that will definitely support and help us getting to a good and strong friendship again.
So you see the light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Definitely, I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I do everything which is possible to me to be done for it to happen.
All right. So that means that it's a perfect, I would say, ending for our program. Very positive. I suggest to meet once again in order to talk about follow-up, to check the development. I hope your projects of public diplomacy will bring certain outcomes and results, and we could discuss it next time in our studio, if you don't mind.
I'm already very happy that I could express myself to your radio station today, and I will definitely have you knowing of our future development, and I'll be very, very happy to be able to participate to your show, to radio show once more in my life.
Merci beaucoup, Matthieu. Matthieu Thorez was the guest of our program for today, and let's continue in the next episodes. See you.
Zvezda Holding presents Dynamic Spectrum Talks now.